Friends, this is Somen Muhury from Belghoria Achievement Coaching Center, welcoming you all to my weekly English class. Today, we will discuss Precis, which as you all know is probably the most difficult topic in a descriptive question paper. Okay, I have written the rules on the board for you, which will definitely help you to understand how to write a Precis and the pitfalls that you have to avoid. Okay, let's go straight to the rules, dear students. First, title. Why first title? Because you will see in many question paper, the numbering is given in this way, 25 plus 5. That means 5 number is especially for the title. Another thing which I will state before I actually go to this rules. That is the difference between a summary and a Precis. Precis, you will have to write exactly 1/3. If the number of the words is not given, you have to count them. And in a summary, the number of words is not important. You can write 1/3, you can write half, it does not matter at all. And also one other thing you have to keep in mind, when you write a Precis, you might be given a separate paper with boxes like a graph paper, and you have to write one word in every box. Okay? Now let's go on. First is title. There are 4 points. Should contain main idea. You have to remember that Precis is called, the title of a Precis is called Precis of a Precis, because it has to contain the main idea. Second point, should be short. There is no particular number of words that you have to follow, 4 or 5 or 6, not at all, but title should be short. It should not be a full sentence. The title should not be a full sentence. Okay? One other thing, should be short. I have not written that you have to write a short title. You can write a big title. There is no rule as such. But big title will not be as impressive. Therefore, short title. Third point, auxiliary verb should not be used. India has won the match. We do not write a Precis title in this way. What do we write? India wins match. As far as possible, you have to remove any auxiliary verb from the title. Okay? Now, question form should not be used. This is compulsory. Question form should not be used because your Precis will be read only by the examiner. You do not have the authority to question him. Therefore, when you write a Precis, you have to follow these 4 lines, 4 points. Main idea, short, auxiliary verb should not be used. Question form should not be used. And the best way, maybe I should have written it as a 5th point, follow newspapers every day, English newspapers every day. You can understand the title and how the title is written, how a few words convey a great idea. Okay, let's move on. Point number 2. Synonyms to be used. This is probably the most vital part of a Precis. You should not copy the words that are given in the original paragraph. You have to use words similar to those. Okay? This is probably the most important rule. This is the very step where many students falter while writing a Precis. We tend to copy certain lines and words. You cannot copy lines, you cannot copy in words. As far as possible, you have to use synonyms. What is the third point? Language to be simple. You can write difficult words only when you write an essay or a translation, but in a Precis, the language has to be very simple and concise. The idea has to be clearly stated in very simple language. Okay? Let's move on to the 4th point now. Dear students, the point that we'll discuss now is important, very important, because we tend to forget this particular rule. Now see what is written on the board for you. Rule number 4, first person I or we should not be used. You might well ask me why? Why cannot we use I or we? You cannot use these pronouns because you have to remember that the words written in the passage are the thoughts and feelings of the writer himself. They are not your thoughts, they are not my thoughts. Okay? So, whenever you see I written or we written, you have to say he or she, just as in the 5th rule. Third person, he, she, it, they should be used. You can also use narrator or speaker or author or writer, but you cannot use I or we. You have to avoid the first person and you have to give importance to the third person. Okay? You understand what I want to say? Now, number 6, another very important rule which you have to follow when you write Precis. Refrain from using. You cannot use these things. What are the things? Number 1, idioms. If the passage contains a particular idiom, you have to remove it. You have to use it in simple language. Let's say Ram beat Sham black and blue. You have to remove black and blue. Ram beat Sham severely. Okay? You get my meaning? Figure of speech. There are many different types of figure of speech. The most simple ones are simile and metaphor. He is as strong as a lion. That is a simile, because we are using as or like to compare two different things. You have to remove that. You can say he is very strong, but you cannot use a comparison with the lion. What is a metaphor? It is also a figure of speech in which as or like cannot be used. The most easy example that comes to the mind, the easiest example that comes to the mind is the camel is the sheep of the desert. The camel is the sheep of the desert. We cannot say camel is like the sheep, but camel is the sheep. Okay? That is a metaphor. That also has to be removed. Personification, where non-living things are compared as if they are human beings. When, let's say, there's tsunami or earthquake and we say nature's anger. Nature is not human beings. How can we say nature's anger? That is called personification. Any type of figure of speech, any type of decorative language has to be removed from your answer. Okay? Direct speech should also be removed. If anyone has said anything, that has to be presented in indirect form. Last, quotations. Shakespeare has said something, or Milton had said something, or our Tagore had said something. We have to remove them. Quotations cannot be used in your answer. Maybe in indirect form, but never in direct speech. Okay? You see why this rule is important? Because if you use these things, then you are actually copying down totally what the writer has said. The examiner will not give us marks for that. Okay? Dear students, we will have now come to the last part of this chapter. Only last few rules are written for you on the board. Before we go on to these rules, I would like to remind you that I have already told you earlier in my earlier videos to follow the rules, to go through the error corrections properly, and if you have any suggestions, you can always write to me in the comment section. And those who have not subscribed, please do subscribe. Okay? Rule number 7, personal comments or criticism to be totally avoided. Comments, you cannot write what you feel about this particular topic. You have to just condense the thing that is given. Okay? When you write an essay, then you can write your own opinion. You do certainly have your own opinion. But while writing a Precis, your comments, what you think about a particular topic, do not matter at all. Repetition to be avoided. In a paragraph, you might see the same thing written in the first and also at the end of the paragraph, or maybe at the end of the particular piece. But you cannot write the same thing again. You have to remember this particular point. Number 9, statistics should be avoided. If there are statistics given, you have to totally avoid them. You cannot write statistics in a condensed form. You have to avoid them. And what is the number 10 point for you? Practice makes a man perfect. Why is this 10 point as important as the other? Because you can score marks in an objective question by regularly going through the videos that I have provided for you. But for a Precis, to score marks in a Precis, you have to practice regularly. You have to practice how to convey his ideas through your own words in a very simple manner. Okay, dear students, we come to the end of this video. In the coming videos, we will have objective intensive classes for you. Thank you. This is Somen Muhury signing off.